Okay, so we may be here a while, and I may be taking quite a back seat to you know what we're going to be doing here. Since basically what I'm going to be attempting to do here, let me just double check people's approval. Everyone's maxed out, so I'm going to be trying to get as much of the talking stuff. Since now we have every, well, I know not technically, but swapping Alistair for low gain doesn't really count. But at this moment, we have everyone, because we now have Ogren as well. So we're going to go around and just try to chat and talk to everybody as much as we can at this point to try and knock out as many of the conversations such. So let's go ahead and start over here with Shale, who I, of course, swapped out some crystals.
It speaks.
I have some questions.
It doesn't have better things to do.
How did Wilhelm come to acquire you?
That part I know, as Wilhelm often bragged about it to whomever was willing to listen to him. He claimed to have found me in the deep roads. I was in the ruins of a Tig, he said, deactivated, with my control rod not far away.
What was Wilhelm doing in the deep roads?
It was a hobby of his, scavenging. One of the reasons he traveled so much is that he was looking for entrances into the deep roads, old places the dwarves had long forgotten. And then he would sneak down and search for magical treasure, before anyone was the wiser.
Wouldn't that have been dangerous?
Indeed. He had spells that allowed him to remain hidden and move quickly, but he had no defense against the blight and worried constantly that he would get sick. If any darkspawn showed themselves, he fled. More often, he would have to fight other scavengers, dwarfs who had become tainted. In the end, it killed him. I mean, he found me there, right?
You don't know why you were there?
I think I remember a battle. It was long before, and then there was darkness. Bah, in short, no, I do not remember why I was there. It makes no difference.
Do you know where in the deep roads this was?
No, that secretive bastard refused to tell me. I would ask and ask, but no. He used to say that one day, if I were compliant and didn't talk back at his wife, he would take me there and I could look around myself. Rotten, lying bastard. If I had his head in my hands now, I would squeeze it like a giant lemon. Squish.
So if he hadn't found you...
I wouldn't have had to put up with the twit, and I would be none the wiser. I don't think I was aware while I was there. Not like in the village. Or perhaps I was. Perhaps that was the dark place, and I simply couldn't see anything. How long could even I sit in the darkness and stare out at nothing, never sleeping? Oh, I do not wish to think of that.
Okay.
On then. It speaks. It doesn't have better things to do.
So you watched that village day and night for years?
I do not sleep, so yes, and I thank it for reminding me. Try to imagine, if it will, what it would be like to be surrounded by nothing but boring peasants, all oblivious to it.
Sounds like you were a bit of a voyeur.
Oh, yes. It certainly was the height of intrigue to listen to the accounts of how young Dornan had scandalized the village by his purchase of an Orlesian hat. And the argument that those two muddy farmers had over the price of barley for a whole summer. Riveting. And then there were the birds. A whole village full of pigeons and ravens and sparrows all perching on me day in and day out.
Sounds a little messy.
Those foolish villagers would spread birdseed near me, drawing the birds, because they thought having birds perch on me was quaint. Quaint! If there hadn't been the occasional kind soul to scour me clean, I don't care to discuss this anymore.
Disapproves Midas 8.
Speaks. It doesn't have better things.
So, you don't seem to like humans much.
That is true. I do not. I'm not interested in getting into a discussion on the subject, however. Ask another time. If it is done asking overly obvious questions, let us find some humans to throw off a cliff or something. It speaks.
You're still with me, I see.
Yes, its adventures are interesting, even if the chances for success are remarkably slim. It would be better to throw oneself off a cliff, I suspect. Does it wish me to leave? I can, though I see no reason to go.
Stay, you're quite helpful.
No doubt. Without me, it would have to carry its inventory on its own. Perhaps we should continue. Its chances of success are small enough without further dawdling.
Okay. I don't think I can talk to Sten more.
You called.
Until we get his sword.
I am hardly surprised.
Do you find Ferelden strange?
To put it lightly, no one has a place here. Your farmers wish to be merchants. The merchants dream of being nobles, and the nobles become warriors. No one is content to be who they are.
Is there anything that you do like about Ferelden?
There is interesting food here. You have a thing. It doesn't have a word in the Kunari tongue. Little baked things like bread, but sweet and crumbly.
You mean cookies?
Yes, we have no such things in our lands. This should be remedied.
Well, don't the Kunari ever want to change their lot in life?
What does that accomplish? The farmer who buys a shop is never a merchant. He is always a farmer turned merchant. He carries his old life with him as a turtle carries its shell.
But that makes the turtle stronger.
Does it? It's also his weakness. If he stumbles and falls over, it pins him on his back. It is better to armor yourself with no more than what you need. One life, one duty.
Well, don't you think happiness is important?
You can learn to find it in doing your duty, in serving your people. There is no need to search for it. Shall we move on?
You sound a bit homesick.
Perhaps. It's strange to be in a crowd and hear a language that is not your own. To see faces that are and aren't like yours. I miss the smells of Saharon. Tea and incense and the sea. Ferelden smells of wet dogs.
The dogs don't smell that bad.
Skunks don't mind the smell of other skunks either. Shall we move on?
That was rather rude.
Speak then.
You said something earlier about mages.
We have no mages such as you do. We have beasts in the shape of men who perform tricks.
Yeah. We learn a lot more about how they treat mages, and it's pretty horrible. Magic is more than tricks.
True. I suppose it is also horror and perversion.
Magic is not entirely evil, you know.
As a fish stranded by the tide knows the air, or a drowning man knows the sea, so does a mage know magic.
I mean, knowledge is not as deadly as ignorance.
Knowledge is one half of wisdom, but there are many things that can only be known too late. Arshera, are we going to fight the Darkspawn, or chatter until they grow bored and leave? Very well.
Why don't Kunari raise their own children?
It obviously didn't work for you.
What's that supposed to mean?
You are a Grey Warden, yet you know little of your own order. You do not know yourself or what you are for. It was cruel of your people to leave you this way. The Tamasran see that all Kunari know themselves.
Becoming a Grey Warden was a recent development.
And you are not trained beforehand? You cannot make the world suit you. You must suit the world.
No one can tell me who I am. I have to decide that myself.
Decide then. Why do you hesitate? It is your task to fight the archdemon, isn't it?
We aren't finished with our preparations yet.
If you fail, preparation beforehand will have been pointless, and if you succeed, it will be by sheer chance anyway.
Well, what do you want to do? Charge straight at the archdemon?
At least we would be going in the right direction. I weary of this. Can we move on? Very well.
What do you mean that your mages are beasts?
I misspoke. They are not beasts. Beasts learn eventually.
What is so terrible about magic?
Mages? Is there some reason you insist upon discussing this?
I'm trying to figure you out.
I applaud your attempt to pursue knowledge, irritating as it may be.
Why do you think mages are evil?
I know nothing of mages themselves, only their actions. There is no use talking of this. We should move on. Very well.
Why do you let the Tamasrans control your life?
What makes it mine? It was theirs to begin with.
You don't belong to them.
They knew me before I was born. I was birthed on the day they chose, placed in the world by their hands. When I die, it will be the Tamasrans who note my passing. I am their work. What I do is for my people, always.
So you never do anything just for yourself?
That would be a waste. A life is so much greater than a single man. There is little point in pursuing this. We should move on. Very well.
Mages are not as dangerous as you say.
Clearly your chantry agrees.
Not all mages turn to blood magic.
My people have a tale. An Ashkari walked among the fields once, observing the laborers at work. Flax bloomed all around him, the color of still water. The air rippled like a curtain. As he stopped to examine a blossom, a bee stung him on the hand. The Ashkari turned to a laborer for aid and noticed for the first time the heavy gloves and coat she wore. As she tended to him, the Ashkari asked them why she was dressed so in such stifling heat. "To avoid your fate," she replied. "But there are many thousands of bees here," the Ashkari said to her, "and only one stung me. Surely your caution is unwarranted." "The stinger is always a surprise," agreed the laborer. "But so is the bee that simply passes one by."
But bees don't know the consequences like mages do.
It costs a bee its life to sting a man. What does it cost a mage? We should not linger here. Very well. Then I suggest we move on.
So you can just kind of
As you wish.
keep asking about the cage thing, even though we already did. So let's talk with our newest buddy, Ogren.
There you are. Wanted to talk to you.
What about?
You and I, you know how sometimes you spend time with people and things.
I love you too, Ogren. Spit it out, dwarf. Take your time. What is it?
I was thinking, I do know some people out here on the surface. A person, actually. A girl I knew in Orzammar. Before I left, obviously.
A girl that you knew, or a girl that you, knew?
What? Oh, you mean were we rutting? Oh, aye. After Bronca left for the deep roads. Name's Felsi. She was a fiery one. I'm sure she's forgiven me by now. Thought maybe I'd track her down, see how she's been living.
What do you mean you were friends?
Oh, we coiled the old rope, if you know what I mean. oiled the mine shaft, rubbed the foreman's elbow.
I'm like, you can stop now. No, don't stop. Keep going. Keep going. Do you have more? You're just making those up, aren't you?
Am I? I've forgotten. Anyway, she left for the surface a year back, and I haven't seen her since.
What is she doing on the surface?
What? Why are you asking me? I didn't do anything. I tried to look her up the last time we were at Lake Calenhad. She wasn't at work at the inn. At home with her sick mother, they said. I figured it was just the ancestors telling me something. But I keep thinking about her.
We can go back.
Well, and a good friend you are, Warden. I'll think about you if we ever... no, actually, that would be gross. No.
Yeah, please don't.
What was it you wanted to say?
Can you teach me to fight like you do?
You want to be a berserker? Thought I'd never see the day. I'll teach you. Just be ready. To be a berserker, you have to face your own inner rage. Let the spirit of battle take over. And all that dust. There's a whole pile of philosophical rot that goes behind it. But the bedrock is this. Get real mad and kill things.
Teach me then.
I can teach you what gets my hackles in a twist. But no one can tell you what'll set off that killing rage in you. Finding that is the key to berserking. Once you got that, I tell you, the ladies love it when you're all mysteriously angry for no reason. Trust me. You're a quick study, Warden. You must have been seriously steamed up about something for a long time.
So I'd like to know more about you.
What about?
Well, first off, are you okay with what happened with Bronca?
Oh, sure. I'm fine with it. I mean, she was a real firebrand between the sheets, but a bit soft in the skull, you know what I mean? Explains why she left, anyway.
Well, you're handling this well.
Handling what? Bronca? Pfft. That treasure's been long buried. Ancestors take me. You people whine like tea kettles around here.
And so there's the quest to go find Felsi.
Come to talk to old Ogren, have you? Don't know why.
What's wrong, Ogren?
Nothing. I'm fine. Just, I got a hornet in my eye is all. Did you want to talk about something?
More about berserkers?
What the sod is there to know? You get mad, you fly into battle, and things die. It's pretty simple. The hard part is getting in touch with your rage. We all learn to hold that back. It's why we don't kill every duster who looks at us sideways. You need to shut that off. For some people, being in battle is enough. But others have to think about something. Violence, monsters, nobles, your wife, whatever.
Your wife?
Aye, especially my wife.
So just thinking about it works?
For most berserkers it does. Several years ago, I worked with a berserker on one expedition who just couldn't work himself up. We had to kick him in the stones before he could get going.
Why would you want to fight that way?
Why not? When you fight, you get mad. By the stone, it's a sodding tactic to enrage your enemy so he makes a mistake, right? Berserkers grab that anger and drink it like it's yesterday's ale. Then we turn it against our foes and watch the limbs fly.
And just thinking angry thoughts makes it happen?
For most berserkers it does. Several years ago, I worked with a berserker on one expedition who just couldn't work himself up. We had to kick him in the stones before he could get going.
Let's talk about something else.
I'm listening.
You.
What about?
Well, how do you like the service?
It's sodding great. At first I was a little queasy with all that air, but there's just so much of it. No one has any idea who you are or what you're doing. And the ale. Oh, who'd have thought ale made with grain? Aye, the surface is great. It's like a big, bright world of filth without a ceiling. My kind of place. Hey, let's go find something to kill, huh? All this talk makes my hands twitchy.
Just a reminder, this is the same man who voices the likes of Grunt, Abathur, and Zoltan Cool.
I got a moment, sure. What about?
Do you miss Orzammar?
What? Miss Orzammar? Are you mad, in addition to being ugly? They
Hey!
treated me like a puddle fly back there. I'm never going back. Alright. Alright then. You sod. Tell that thing to give it back.
What are you talking about?
That dog! Mangy mongrel. Sodding thing took my pants. I'll show him. Yeah, I don't need my pants anyway.
Yes, you do. Ogren, you're wearing pants.
But the dog doesn't know that. And it will be his sodding downfall. You hear that, Nug Humper? I'm coming for you. Prepare to die.
Bark Spawn, you okay?
Oh, why, you little...
What? What?
Your furry friend here took offense at me getting near his food. He snapped at me, look.
Good boy, that'll teach that silly ass there a lesson.
Sometimes I forget that he's a war dog. That'll teach me. I once heard a really old legend about how the Hound warriors in the days of the old tribes would feed their Mabari the flesh of the vanquished. Well, that's what I heard anyway. It would sometimes be human flesh. Oh, like you can tell the difference. For all you know, maybe you've already been fed something. Someone.
I would never feed you another human being.
It's not cannibalism if he's eating it, you know.
Look at what your fool dog placed in my pack. A putrid, half-eaten hare is not something a woman wants to find in her unmentionables.
He ruined them? So then, does this mean you have to go without?
Maybe, but that is not the point. Dirty mongrel can have this back. There. And tell him not to do it again.
You heard the lady.
I don't want it, you worthless fur bag.
Aw, I think you hurt his feelings.
Oh, he's just trying to be manipulative, I can tell. I do it too.
Your dog is filthy. I can smell him 50 yards off.
Hey. I'm sure you're exaggerating.
That may be so, but all the same, I would like your permission to bathe him.
Bathe? Can't you just, like, wave your staff and make him clean?
No, that's not what magic is used for. Just make him sleep over on the other side of the camp. With Alistair. With any luck, that will keep all the stench confined to one small area.
I love this little interaction here.
You are a true warrior and worthy of respect.
I mean, coming from Sten, that's... You know he means it. Sten doesn't say something like that just as a joke or something. So, that's pretty cool. Trying to find a way through the earth, are we? It's gonna take some time, you know. Well, good luck with that. Alright, let's go back to Ogren now.
I got a moment, sure. What about?
So what is it like to be a warrior in Orzammar?
You get a sword or an axe, and are told to go out and defend your city. It's the best thing in the world. That is until you try to live in the city you saved.
What do you mean?
I mean, they train you to kill, teach you to harness your rage at the first noise you hear, then try to set 100 sodding rules about it. Like those provings. Ancestors show their favor through the strongest arm, right? So why so many rules saying how to fight, and when you win, and not to bloody kill? Killing's what swords are for.
Why didn't they give you a blunted weapon?
You can kill with blunted weapons, Warden. Well, maybe you can't. This makes me cranky. Don't you have any other inane questions? Alright. Alright then. I got a moment, sure.
I can actually ask him to leave.
What about? Alright.
Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind?
Why did you decide to come to Ferelden?
My mother was from Denerim, and I consider myself a Ferelden. Mother served an Orlesian noblewoman who lived here when Orlais ruled. When Orlais was defeated, and the common folk began to resent the presence of any Orlesian, the lady returned to Orlais. She took my mother with her. I was born in Orlais, and did not set foot in Ferelden till much later. Mother was always telling me stories of her homeland. I think she missed it.
What happened to your mother?
Mother died when I was very young. Lady Cecily let me stay with her. I had no one else. She was quite old then, and she had me study music and dance to entertain her. It is unfair that I have more memories of Cecily than my mother.
What was Cecily like?
She was an elderly lady, very refined and proper. She had impeccable manners and taste, more so than a lot of Orlesian ladies. Cecily was also kind. My mother was unmarried and with child. It was scandalous, and Cecily had every right to turn my mother out. She didn't. Strangely, the only thing I really remember of Mother was her scent. She kept dry flowers in her closet amongst her clothes. Small white Ferelden wildflowers with a sweet fragrance. Mother called them Andrastis Grace. They were very rare in Orlais. But enough about that. Let us move on. Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind?
Do you miss anything about Orlais?
I miss Val-Royeaux. Unlike other cities where the people are the lifeblood and the character, Val-Royeaux was her own person, and her people little more than decorations. There was always music in Val-Royeaux, streaming from the many windows, quiet refrains and triumphant choruses, and always, floating above that all, the chant, coming from the Grand Cathedral. It was magnificent.
Sounds wonderful.
Oh, it would take me a day or two to talk about the many splendors of Orlais, her golden fields, her lush meadows. Of course there are good things and bad things about Orlais, like anywhere else. Sometimes I miss it dearly, and sometimes I'm glad I'm rid of it. And you will laugh at this, but I miss the fine things I had in Orlais.
What sort of things?
Dresses, fine dresses and furs, and shoes, of course. One can't mingle with nobility with bad shoes, you see. Orlais is very fashionable, almost ridiculously so. But the shoes, Living with those ridiculous trends was worth it for the shoes.
Well, you can get nice shoes in Denerim.
Perhaps. Ferelden folk are so much more practical. I don't see them making use of something simply for its looks. When I left Orlais, the fashion was shoes with delicate tapered heels and embellishments in the front. A ribbon, perhaps, or embroidery. In soft colors, of course. It was spring.
Wouldn't that be hard to walk in?
I wouldn't want to run in it, or have to enter battle, but for lounging in a lady's sitting room? Perfect. The shoes made in Orlais were exquisite. Not at all like these clunky fur-lined leather boots you have in Ferelden. Ugh, just look at them.
Now, if I was going to pursue a romance with Leliana, I would of course do this, but I already showed you guys the Leliana romance in my original run of this game, if you want to check that out. Though I don't blame you if you don't want to. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the viewership you guys have given that playthrough. It's one of my, my highest viewed playthroughs I've ever done. I just don't blame you in terms of the quality, since the visual quality of those vids are not really up all that great compared to what I'm trying to do now, so... Well, they are comfortable.
They're sturdy shoes, but sometimes a girl just wants to have pretty feet. Oh, I could talk about shoes all day, but we have things to do, don't we?
I think I may know a couple of ladies, or have met a couple of ladies like this in my own personal real life.
Something I can help with?
In regards to the shoes thing.
Yes? What's on your mind?
Because we know how much women love shoes, right? I heard that in Orlais, minstrels are often spies.
Where did you hear this?
I read it in a history book.
And did you not think that this could be historical fact and no longer true? Not all minstrels are spies. Most are just singers and storytellers, but some of them are what we call bards.
What's the difference?
Many use the two words minstrel and bard interchangeably, but to do so in Orlais would cause misunderstanding. Bards are minstrels and more. Spies, as you say. Some say there is a bard order, but I don't think this is true. Many bards work alone or in small groups, doing the bidding of a patron who pays for their services. If there is an organization behind it all, no one knows who they are.
What sort of patron?
Nobles, mostly. In Orlais, there is much rivalry amongst the highborn. They fight over land, influence, and the favor of the empress. But they cannot do this openly because it is impolite, and in public, they wear smiling faces and pretend to be civil. In secret, they plot and scheme to destroy each other. It is a game completely meaningless to anyone but its players.
We see a lot of this when we get to Inquisition and we go to Val Royeaux, and especially when we do the whole the main quest where we go there to the Winter Palace in Val Royeaux, trying to prevent Celine from getting assassinated, where we basically get to participate in the game. But we get to see quite a bit of this in Inquisition, which was, I think, a pretty nice bit that they had in there. You were a bard, weren't you?
I have revealed too much, it seems, but it doesn't matter what I used to be. It is the past.
But then why were you living cloistered sister in rural Ferelden? I think this is a little misspelled. But why were you living as a cloistered sister in rural Ferelden?
I found myself in Ferelden and sheltered from bad weather in the Chantry. And when the storm passed, I just did not want to leave. I like to say the Maker brought me here.
If you want to see more about that story of what she just referred to, I have a separate playlist where I did the Leliana song DLC. If you want to see that particular backstory for Leliana. I'm considering doing it again on camera, but there's not much reason to, other than maybe I just didn't do it as a good quality and would want to redo it for better quality. I don't know. I'll think about it.
Something I can help with?
Could you teach me to be a bard?
I don't think you have the correct aptitude. I could give you some pointers, though. You may be able to pass them on to someone you know. Let's just go over there, away from the others. For safety, yes? I expect there shall be daggers flying about willy-nilly for a time.
So, I could give that to Zevran.
Something I can help with? Yes? What's on your mind?
So, do you have tales to share?
Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Everyone should be able to benefit from them, I think.
Tell me about the Darkspawn.
Chantry law says it is man's pride that created the Darkspawn. In ages past, the mages of the Tevinder Imperium ruled much of the world we know. In their pride, they thought their magics invincible and imagined that they were greater than the Maker himself. So thinking, they invaded his golden city, planning to take it for themselves and depose their own creator. But they were impure and full of sin. And it is with the sin that they tainted the golden city, corrupting it forever. The Maker cursed them and cast them from his sight. Wherever they went, they spread the taint of their sin. Any land that was touched by the taint became blighted and would suffer no life. Instead, the Darkspawn arose to torment us and remind us of our hubris.
I always remember that line, and I will of course show this when we get to Dragon Age 2, and we do the Legacy DLC. The line when we find Corypheus, and he is just kind of talking, and one of the lines he says I'll never forget was, "The city, it was supposed to be golden. It was supposed to be ours." That's what that just reminded me of. Do you know any Ferelden legends?
I know one, told to me by my mother a long time ago. It always chilled me to the bone. Maybe you have heard of Flemeth?
Yes, Morgan's mother was called Flemeth.
Are you sure? Was she the Flemeth of legend? Flemeth, the devourer of men? Flemeth, mother of witches? Flemeth, demon-touched, who dwells in the mists?
Flemeth, who bears the soul of Mythal. What? Yeah, I'll obviously talk more about that when we get there in Inquisition, but let's just say that was a reveal that just, oh my gosh, that really got me. Well, she didn't really introduce herself as such.
Ferelden mothers scare their daughters with talk of Flemeth. They say that if you're bad, Flemeth will spirit you away and bind you to her forever. They also say that Flemeth mourns her lost beauty and will steal yours through your looking glass if she catches you.
Tell me the whole story.
Flemeth's beauty was known throughout the land. She had hair like unto a moonless night, skin as pale as winter's first snow, and eyes as beautiful and perilous as the sea. When she came of age, she came to the attention of the Lord of Highever, Conobar, and he took her for his wife. Conobar soon learned that his young bride had the gift of magic. He kept this a secret, for he feared that she would be taken from him. Flemeth stayed with Conobar for some years, and with his blessing, she practiced her art. And then one day, a young poet named Osen came to the castle. Flemeth was captivated by Osen's voice, and he by her beauty, and they fell in love.
What happened then?
Flemeth longed to be with her true love, and she and Osen fled from Conobar's lands, seeking refuge in the Kokari wilds with the Chasing tribes. They lived there happily for many a year, till the day Flemeth received news that Conobar was dying and longed to see her face one last time. Flemeth's heart swelled with pity for the man who once was her husband, and begged Osen to return to Conobar's side with her. But when Flemeth and Osen entered Highever, they were captured by Conobar's men, and Osen was slain in front of Flemeth's eyes. Flemeth was imprisoned in the highest tower of the castle, there to await Conobar's judgment on her. Distraught at the loss of her love, Flemeth plotted revenge against her husband. She summoned a fey demon, intending for it to wreak vengeance on Conobar. But a spell went awry. The demon possessed Flemeth. Turning her into an abomination, the halls of the castle ran red with blood as Flemeth slaughtered Conobar and all his men. The last of Flemeth's humanity melted away, and at dawn, she stole back to the wilds to plot and scheme for 100 years. They say she took to her side many Chasing men, and with their help, begat her daughter witches, who even now prowl the dark places of the Kokari wilds.
Which is, what's interesting is that a few of these little details are not quite as they are told here, as Flemeth clarifies for us in Inquisition. That it wasn't the spirit, that it was actually Mythal. But the fact that she actually confirms this story for us when we meet her and she says, "But yes, I was that woman." And she talks about how she was betrayed. Which, fits very much with that story. Is there more you can tell me about the Darkspawn?
Chantry law says it is man's pride.
Oh, hold on.
Ages past,
Okay, it's the same one. Never mind.
that was touched by the taint.
What about Orlais?
Of course, Orlesians enjoy telling stories. I shall tell you my favorite tale of Aveline, the Knight of Orlais.
No relation to the Aveline we meet in Dragon Age 2, as is clarified when we find the shield. Go ahead.
A long time ago, a girl child was born to a farmer. He had hoped for a son, not a daughter, and so he told his wife to abandon the child in the woods. Before the cold could claim her, the baby was found by a tribe of Dalish elves who took pity on the poor mewling thing and raised her as their own. Aveline, for that is what they called her, grew strong and quick and clever under the guidance of the elves. She learned to wield the sword as well as any man, could kill a deer with an arrow at 100 paces, and was as graceful on the back of a horse as she was on foot.
Continue, please.
Aveline's Dalish guardians saw that she could easily best any Orlesian chevalier in battle, and wanted to show the cruel humans the child they had left to die. They bestowed upon her a fine horse and armor, and sent her to prove herself to her people in the grand tourney. Now in those days, no woman was allowed to take up arms, let alone compete in the grand tourney, but Aveline kept her helmet on and was not discovered.
Did she win?
Aveline won many events and gained the approval of the adoring crowd. Eventually, she came face to face with the knight Kaleva in the grand melee. Aveline had already bested him in the joust, and Kaleva was determined not to lose a second time. Out of desperation to regain his honor, Kaleva tripped Aveline and tossed her to the ground, ripping off her helmet as he did so. Silence fell upon the arena as Aveline was revealed. Kaleva declared the previous competitions invalid. A woman had taken part, and this was not allowed. But the crowd cheered for Aveline. Kaleva was furious, for he had lost to a woman and was now being shamed. Blinded by his rage, he forced Aveline to her knees. "Know your place, woman," cried he, and slit her throat.
That's terrible.
The son of the king, Prince Freyan, was present. He recognized Aveline's skill and bravery and began to see the injustice done to the women in his land. When he was made king, he rewrote the laws of Orlais so that women could also become chevalier. He honored Aveline and knighted her after her death. And to this day, any female who is knighted reveres Aveline the Brave, for she is the patron of all women chevalier. Which one?
What do you know about Andraste?
Andraste was the Maker's chosen. The Maker had long since abandoned the world when the sound of her singing turned his ear. Beauty, grace, and wisdom enraptured him, and he offered to take her from this flawed world to become his divine bride. But Andraste had an earthly husband and would not forsake him. Instead, she beseeched the Maker to return to his people once more. So earnest was her plea that the Maker was moved and promised that he would create a paradise on earth if all abandoned their false gods and turned once more to him. And this is why Andraste began her exalted march on the idolaters of the Tevinter Imperium. The Maker granted her his powers with which to smite her enemies. Andraste brought the Imperium to its knees, and her victories converted many to the worship of the Maker.
How did Andraste die?
Alas, it was the frailties of men that betrayed and killed Andraste. Her earthly husband, Maferath, a chieftain of the Alamari tribes himself, grew jealous as his wife's popularity and influence overshadowed his own. She was also revered as the Maker's betrothed, and Maferath began to see their own bond waning in significance as Andraste became ever more devoted to the Maker. Out of envy and spite, Maferath made a pact with the Archon Hysarian of Tevinter, allowing his beloved Andraste to be ambushed and captured. Andraste was burned at the stake in Minrathous, the capital of Tevinter.
But Tevinter has a chantry, doesn't it?
The Tevinter chantry claims that in Andraste's last moments, Hysarian's heart softened, and he heard the voice of the Maker telling him to end her suffering. He plunged his sword into her heart, and as her blood washed over his hands, he became one of the faithful. Dissenters said that the Archon only converted because he could not stem the tide of Andraste's cult, and was forced to do so to stay in power. We will never know for sure.
I think we actually get a little bit... I don't remember if we actually get to ask Dorian about this in an Inquisition. We get to learn a lot about the Tevinter Imperium from Dorian, which is interesting because at this point in time, it was kind of depicted that the Tevinter Imperium was like, you know, this horrible, evil place. And then we get to Inquisition and we actually learn from the likes of Dorian that, no, there's actually... like, there are some good people and such in the Tevinter. You know, Dorian kind of makes this point pretty clear. And how proud he is of his homeland and such. It was a very interesting thing that I thought was really fascinating about Inquisition. Tell me about the Dalish.
I have heard a little about how the elves gained their freedom from the Tevinter Imperium. When Andraste began her exalted march against the Imperium, the elves joined her cause to fight their masters. The great elven leader, Shatan, born in captivity, rose up to lead his people. He foresaw a future where the elves were free. Shatan was killed when Andraste was betrayed, but the elves continued to fight, eventually breaking free of the Imperium. The elves claimed the Dales in the south and settled there in the land of their own.
It didn't last.
The elves lived in the Dales for centuries. They resurrected the worship of the elven gods and would allow the building of no chantry. This angered the chantry, and the hostility between the two factions finally broke out in open war. The chantry says the elves struck first, but I do not know whether to believe it. The chantry declared a wholly exalted march against the elves, named for Andraste's similar march against Tevinter. During the exalted march of the Dales, the elven cities were sacked, and the elven state completely dissolved. Some of the elves bitterly accepted their fates and surrendered to human rule, living in the human cities as second-class citizens. But others, still fiercely proud of their heritage, refused to bow to the humans, and instead became homeless wanderers. They were the elves of the Dales, The Dalish.
And those are the tales from Leliana. Let's look to Wynn next.
Have you encountered many abominations, apart from the ones in the Circle Tower?
No, the ones in the tower were the first I had seen.
The first time I saw an abomination, my blood turned to ice. It was months before the nightmares stopped. It was the knowledge that I could easily become one of them that frightened me the most.
Seeing the monster that you could be is unsettling, yes.
One slip. All it takes is one slip, and everything you are is simply gone. Replaced by madness. And there is no turning back, or at least that's what they say.
Do you have doubts?
Of late, I have begun to wonder if there is any way an abomination can be cured. Or if a mage could be so possessed and still retain their sanity, their humanity.
If one retains one's humanity, one is not an abomination.
Yes, it is madness and cruelty that define abominations. If those are lacking, if the mage remembers the person they truly are, then they are not an abomination. I never saw that. Thank you for showing me another way of looking at it. You're quite taken with each other, aren't you?
You know about Morgan and me?
Well, she's hardly discreet. The way she looks at you, it's as though she's completely forgotten there's anything of you above the waist.
There's a lot more of people of the... Oh my gosh. Wow! We can just go straight up bragging to win. I'm not sure if I want to be bragging about that to win. But that's part of her charm.
I've noticed your blossoming relationship, and I wanted to ask you where you thought it was going. She is a cunning woman, a Maleficar. She will use you for her own ends.
There's more to us than that.
I am telling you what I see and what my instincts tell me. And even if the feelings you share are genuine, this affair may not be the best thing for either of you. You are a Grey Warden. You have responsibilities which supersede your personal desires.
I'm a human being with emotions, not just a Grey Warden.
Love is ultimately selfish. It demands that one be devoted to a single person who may fully occupy one's mind and heart to the exclusion of all else. A Grey Warden cannot afford to be selfish. You may be forced to make a choice between saving your love and saving everyone else. And then what would you do?
You're making things sound more dire than they are.
Nothing is certain. Not in these times. You cannot take anything for granted. I want you to be aware of this.
Morgan and I can handle whatever comes our way.
If you insist, I have given my advice. Do with it what you will. What's on your mind?
Are you feeling better?
Oh, yes, and thank you for asking. I'm feeling much better today.
I like making sure that all of my companions are well.
Well, thank you for your kindness, my dear. It certainly warms these rickety old bones.
Wynn is like the grandmother of our group.
What's on your mind?
Have you changed your mind about Morgan and me?
I have watched you for a time, and perhaps I was wrong. There seems to be something special between the two of you. It doesn't happen often, but I see her smile to herself sometimes when she watches you.
does she now? How sweet. I have to tease her about that now.
I think I was too harsh in my judgment before, and I am sorry.
You just wanted the best for both of us.
What you have may not last forever. Death and duty may part you, but love's worthiness is not diminished because of that. I should have seen this before. Instead, you learn to cherish every precious moment that you spend together, knowing that it may be the last. And for those of us watching, well, it brings warmth to these old bones to know that something so beautiful can be found in the midst of chaos and strife. What's on your mind? I will answer to the best of my ability.
So how did you become a mage?
People don't become mages. They are born mages. The talent just surfaces later. But you are asking how I ended up at the Circle. I was brought there by the Templars, just like many of the other apprentices. I don't remember very much. I was very young then.
What about your family?
I didn't have a family. I never knew my real parents. My earliest memory was of hiding in a hayloft on a farm, trying to keep warm. I was found, and the farmer's wife was kind enough not to send me away. But they had children of their own, and I was never made to feel welcome. The eldest son was the worst. He was always calling me a stray, and throwing anything he could get his hands on at me. And I don't know how it happened, but one day, he just found his hair on fire. Fortunately, there was a large trough nearby.
He just happened to find his hair on fire. Serves him right.
He ran screaming, dripping head and all, to his mother. I was shut up in the barn with a bowl of water and a crust of hard bread. The Templars arrived several mornings later.
Were the Templars mean to you?
One of them ignored me, but the other was kind to me. He gave me sweets and even sat me on his shoulders once when I wanted to look over a high wall that ran along the road. I'll never forget the moment the Templars led me into the entrance hall of the tower. I had never seen anything so grand in my life. I stopped being afraid then. I knew I was home.
Don't get sentimental on me now.
I will stop. Reminiscence on times long gone should be a private, self-indulgent pastime.
Well, what do you think will happen to the Circle now?
So many are gone. They will need new enchanters. Perhaps they will look to Orlais or Antiva. It will be difficult for a while, but I have no doubt that the Circle will recover.
What was life like in the tower?
I would be lying if I said it was easy. First, there were rules, and we were constantly watched to make sure we behaved appropriately. Then there was the study of magic. We had to cast the spells just so, control the effects completely. A single word spoken incorrectly, a gesture out of sync, and lack of focus. And we needed to have perfect focus, or we would be in danger.
Well, at least you learned the dangers of magic from the Circle.
Without the Circle and my mentors, I would not have been where I am today. And there was joy in life at the Circle. The joys of fellowship, in knowing that you were not alone in your struggles. In spite of everything, I was happy in the tower, and I loved it. What's on your mind? I will answer to the best of my ability. So many, it will be difficult for...
Yep, that's it. Okay, never mind. Zevran.
I've a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. I swore an oath to serve you, yes? And I understand the quest you're on, and this is all very fine and well. My question pertains to what you intend to do with me once this business is over with, as a point of curiosity.
Is this after I ravish you and celebrate? Why would I do anything with you?
Oh, I imply nothing specific, of course. One simply assumes that once your Grey Warden business is finished, you would have no need of an assassin to follow you about. Am I wrong?
I will always need a servant. Oh gosh, I can always use a friend.
Indeed. I might even be glad to call myself such, come to think of it. It is good to know what my options might be, but that is for another time. For now, we have much to do, yes?
Let's save since we are an hour in now.
What say you?
Can you answer some questions?
By all means.
What does it take to become an assassin?
Well, the Crows would have you believe that it is an involved process that takes years of training, the sort that tests both your resolve and your endurance. Survive that process and maybe, just maybe, you're good enough to start being considered one of them. But quite frankly, the truth is that all it requires is a desire to kill people for a living. It's surprising how well one can do in such a field.
It doesn't take any special skill?
I don't know about that. It's simply a slightly different skill set from your average killer as I see it. An assassin simply specializes in striking from stealth, and in maximizing that first attack to be as lethal as possible. Debilitate your foe, either by poison or by crippling their limbs, makes any follow-up combat you need to engage in that much simpler.
So, do you always use poison then?
I do. It is not something inherent in an assassin's skills, however, merely something complementary. Of course, the Crows like to pretend that their abilities are trade secrets, shrouded in shadows and wrapped in a blanket of mystery. So let's just keep this between you and me, shall we? What say you?
Can you teach others to be an assassin?
I could teach others, but not yourself. First, I would need someone who has training as a rogue. That is, unless you would care to spend the years it takes to gain the fundamentals. But if there should be such a person who desires this training, yes, by all means, send them to me. The Crows are already furious, no? I shall enjoy tweaking their nose further. What say you? By all means.
Do you actually enjoy being an assassin?
And why not? There are many things to enjoy about being a Crow in Antiva. You are respected, you are feared, the authorities go out of their way to overlook your trespasses, even the rewards are nothing to turn your nose up at. As for the killing part, well, some people simply need assassinating. Or do you disagree?
By the way, thank you to someone earlier in this playthrough who, when I asked, or I think I was comparing them to the organization of assassins in Morrowind from Elder Scrolls, that you point out to me that it was the Morag Tong. Thank you very much for that. Because that's very much what I thought of when he was describing how the Crows are this respected, organization of assassins. I thought, that sounds a lot like the Morag Tong. Have you never killed an innocent?
Now there's an interesting word, innocent. How many men do you know who can claim to be truly innocent? But if you're talking generalities, such as children and relatives and bystanders and such, never on purpose. But it happens. It's
Collateral.
unfortunate, but death comes to us all. If not me, then some wasting disease, or a fall down the stairs, or at the hands of a darkspawn. It's all relative in the end.
That's a very practical attitude.
Death happens, as we like to say. And when I get paid for it, death happens more often. As far as enjoying the act of killing itself, why not? There is a certain artistry to the deed. The pleasure of sinking your blade into their flesh and knowing that their life is in your hands.
I think I know what you mean.
There are many things I did not enjoy about being a Crow, of course. Having no choice, being treated as an expendable commodity, the rules. Oh, so many rules. But simply being an assassin, I like it just fine. I will continue to do it if I can, even if I am not a crow. Honestly, could you picture me doing something else?
Why not? I think you can do whatever you like.
Whereas I am content merely doing what I happen to be good at. It's a talent that not many come by, honestly. I don't see why I need not pursue it. Of course, all these thoughts are moot. Chances are still good that you and I will perish, eaten by darkspawn or slain by the crows at some point. Very gruesomely, I imagine. But it is pleasant enough to chat about. Come, let's move on while our boots still have some wear in them. What say you? By all means.
Tell me a little bit about Antiva.
Oh, you wish to know about Antiva, do you? The only way to truly appreciate it would be to go there. It is a warm place, not cold and harsh like this Ferelden. In Antiva it rains often, but the flowers are always in bloom. Or so the saying goes.
You don't like Ferelden?
It is fine enough with its dogs and its mud. The people are spirited, even if they can't tell the difference between an assassin and a mere killer. I hail from the glorious Antiva city, home to the royal palace. It is a glittering gem amidst the sand, my Antiva city. Do you come from someplace comparable?
Well, I was born in Highever, in the north.
Oh, I have never seen that place. I am sure it has its charms, and its dogs. You know what is most odd? We speak of my homeland, and for all its wine and its dark-haired beauties and the lilo flutes of the minstrels, I miss the leather the most.
This I have to hear.
I mean the smell. For years, I lived in a tiny apartment near Antiva City's leather-making district, in a building where the crows stored their youngest recruits, packed in like crates. I grew accustomed to the stench, even though the humans complained of it constantly. To this day, the smell of fresh leather is what reminds me most of home more than anything else.
I like how when we find, I think it's something made of Antivan leather, we can give it to him as a gift. He's like, oh, that smell. I'll try and see if I can show that on camera at some point. I just gotta remember if I have that or where to get that if I don't have it. You sound like you've been away from home forever.
Oh, not so long, I know. It is my first time away from Antiva, however, and the thought of never returning makes me think of it constantly. Before I left, I was tempted to spend what little coin I possessed on leather boots I spotted in a store window. Finest Antivan leather. Perfect craftsmanship. But I was a fool to leave them. I thought, Zevran, you can buy them when you return as a reward for a job well done. More the fool I, no?
Well, your home is still there, Zevran.
True, and it's a comforting thought. One simply never knows what is to come next. How could I have suspected I would end up defeated by a handsome Grey Warden? A man who then spares my life? I could not.
Is that supposed to be flattery?
Perhaps that was a poor choice of words. True, though it is. Do you object?
You're wasting your time, that's all.
I'm not sure that that's the route I would take, were I to continue old habits, but as you wish. Now, if it is all the same to you, I would prefer not to speak more of Antiva. It makes me wistful and hungry for a proper meal.
Oh my gosh! Minus 26 disapproval. Wow!
What say you?
Holy mackerel.
By all means. My adventures? I'm hardly an old man just returned from across the ocean, am I? Should I shake my fist at nearby children while I talk about the good old days?
Well, you certainly talk like you've had adventures.
falling down a flight of stairs is an adventure. Falling into someone's bed, also an adventure. I am assuming what you're looking for are professional anecdotes. Let's see, my second mission ever for the Crows was a bit intriguing. I was sent to kill a mage who had been meddling in politics.
Meddling in politics, how?
How should I know? I got the impression it involved sex, but then I get that impression about most everything. Odd, really. As it turned out, the mage in question was quite a delightful young woman. Long, divine legs, as I recall. I caught her in a carriage on her way to escape to the provinces. After I killed her guard, she got down on her hands and knees and begged for her life. Rather aptly, I might add. So I joined her in the carriage for the night and left the next morning.
And she didn't try to kill you?
Well, yes, twice, actually. Then she decided to try and use me instead. The woman had actually convinced me to speak to the Crows on her behalf. What can I say? I was young and foolish at the time. Then, as I was kissing her goodbye to return to Antiva City, she slipped on the threshold and fell backwards out of the carriage. Broke her neck. Shame, really, but at least it happened quickly.
So you didn't actually kill her?
Not actually, no. I was a bit unimpressed by the development at first. Then I found out that she had told the driver to take her to Janellen instead. She had planned to lose me in the provinces. I would have looked very foolish to the Crows. As it was, my master was very impressed that I had done such a fine job of making it look like an accident. The circle of magi was unaware of foul play, and everyone was happier all around.
Do these sorts of things happen to you often?
Like being spared by a benevolent mark who then helps me escape from the Crows? Yes, it does seem to happen now and again, doesn't it? It was after that when I learned that one needn't let a pretty face go to your head. Professionalism was key. That's my moral of the day, you see.
A wise lesson to learn.
And one that not everyone learns, I'm sad to say. But that's enough tale spinning from me for the moment. Talking about the mage has made me a bit nostalgic, I'm afraid. Ah, the good old days. What say you? By all means. Again, well now, what might interest you, I wonder? Shall I describe the stages involved with Lanthrax poisoning? I watched a man go through all 7 once.
That sounds like fun.
Haha, you have rather macabre tastes, I see. I like that. Let's see, how about the largest battle I ever took part in? That would have been the slaughter of Prince Azrin. Did you hear of that down in these parts?
You killed a prince?
Me? Not personally, but I did take part in the attack. Prince Azrin was 4th in line to the throne, you see. He started off as 11th, but worked his way up the old-fashioned method by inheriting control of an entire Crocell from his grandfather. After assassinating his way through the royal family, the king hired 3 other cells to take down Prince Azrin once and for all. I was in one of those cells.
Is this sort of thing common in Antiva?
Antivan royalty is very much bound up in the Crows. You wouldn't want it run by a bunch of commoners, after all, would you? And this means they get involved in politics quite often. This particular fight nearly bankrupted the nation, I understand. It almost ended up putting a crow on the throne, a commoner. But that's a whole different story. I played a very small part.
What did you do?
My part in the entire battle was taken up trying to reach Princess Verina, who had thrown in with her brother. I killed about 11 of her guards personally before I got knocked out of a window. I landed in a river and nearly drowned. I was fished out by some urchins who robbed me blind. Made off with my boots, too. At least they didn't cut my throat. And that was my part in history.
You got robbed by urchins?
I had to find my way back to the safe house, bruised and naked, and thankful to be alive. But there you go. Tale told. Let's be off before I tell more embarrassing stories, huh? What say you? By all means. Well, The only one that's really worth telling is the story of the mission right before I came to Ferelden. But no, I would rather not. I shouldn't have said anything.
It's alright. I understand.
Thank you. Perhaps another day, huh?
Yeah, that's the one that we're actually going to hear hinted at when we take him to meet the guy who guards the urn.
What say you? Oh, this should be good. What would you like to discuss?
Never mind. Okay, let's talk to Alistair.
Something on your mind? Of course.
So tell me more about the Grey Wardens.
Such as they are.
Where are the nearest wardens from here?
That's a good question. There's plenty in Orlais, but who knows where they might be found. And the nearest Orlesian city is weeks away. If we go north and cross the sea, there's bound to be some in the Free Marches. Again, however, I just don't know where. I don't know anything about Grey Wardens in other lands.
Is there a headquarters somewhere?
Here in Ferelden, there's our compound in Denerim at the palace, but that's it. Loghain will have control over that and be watching it, no doubt. Beyond that, the only place I know of is Weishaupt Fortress. That's the headquarters of all Grey Wardens in the Anderfelds, 1,000 miles from here. But I've no idea how to even contact them. So unless we try to get back to the compound in Denerim, I suppose the answer is no. There's nowhere for us to go.
What happens now if there's just the two of us?
I imagine that eventually the Grey Wardens outside of Ferelden will wonder what's happened. Why there's no contact from Duncan or someone. They'll send someone eventually. Though who knows what Loghain's people in Denerim will tell them. Maybe they won't send anyone. We could try to contact them. But that would mean leaving Ferelden, and even if we did, they couldn't come back with us in time to stop the Blight. So that means whatever happens, it's up to us.
Will we need to start rebuilding the Order?
I mean, eventually we would have to use the joining to make more Grey Wardens, right? But I don't know how to do the joining, or what's involved. I know it involves lyrium and some other magic, and that it's really difficult to prepare, but that's it. Unless we can find out more about the joining, I guess we better get used to the idea that there might only be two of us for now. Until more come from elsewhere.
No more questions.
About the Grey Wardens, anyhow. Fair enough. Something on your mind? Of course.
So what changes about you after the joining?
You mean other than becoming a Grey Warden?
Well, you've been a Grey Warden longer than I have.
You know, I asked Duncan this too. And all I got was, you'll see.
He wouldn't tell you?
Oh, it's not that Duncan wants to keep it a secret. It's just that the Grey Wardens don't discuss it much. I gather it's not a pleasant topic. The first change I noticed was an increase in appetite. I used to get up in the middle of the night and raid the castle larder. I thought I was starving. I'd slurp down every dinner like it was my last. My face all covered in gravy. When I'd look up, the other Grey Wardens would stare, then laugh themselves to tears.
I haven't felt anything like that.
Really? I saw you eating dinner the other day. Savage.
Yes, well...
Ah yes, the classy camaraderie of two men traveling out in the open. I take it you were like this before the joining, then. Oh, and then there were the nightmares. Duncan said it was part of how we sense the Darkspawn. We tap into their, well, I don't know what you call it, their group mind. And when we
Hive
sleep,
mind.
it's even worse. You learn to block it out after a while, but at first it's hard. It's supposed to be worse for those who join during a blight. How is it for you?
I've had some strange dreams.
Some people never have much trouble, but that's rare. Others have trouble sleeping their entire life. They're just more sensitive, I suppose. Everyone ends up the same, though. Once you reach a certain age, the real nightmares come. That's how a Grey Warden knows his time has come.
His time has come?
Oh, that's right. We never had time to tell you that part, did we? Well, in addition to all the other wonderful things about being a Grey Warden, you don't need to worry about dying from old age. You've got 30 years to live. Give or take. The taint. It's a death sentence. Ultimately, your body won't be able to take it. When the time comes, most Grey Wardens go to Orzammar and die in battle rather than waiting. It's tradition.
The calling. Remember, as we find out in Inquisition, our Warden is going to take this news very seriously to the point where he is going to go on a quest to find a cure for the calling to prevent this from happening anymore. We do not know the result of this quest. That's just simply what our Warden here is going to tell our Inquisitor in a letter in Inquisition. Just keep that in mind. So, I'm going to die.
We're all going to die. When Duncan told me, I was angry. He put his hand on my shoulder and said this. It's not how you die that's important. It's how you live. And you wondered why we kept the joining a secret from the new recruits. And there you have it.
There's more to it than that. It seems a high price to pay.
I suppose it is. We're the only ones who can stop the Blight, however. Is there a price too high to pay for that? You know, Duncan... he started having the nightmares again. He told me that in private. He said it wouldn't be long before he'd go to Orzammar himself. I guess he got what he wanted. I just wish it had been something worthy of him.
So that's what I was talking about, how Duncan actually was planning on going to the Deep Roads after Ostagar because he was hearing the calling. He'll be remembered, Alistair, as will the others.
I know. Ending the Blight should make this all worthwhile, right? Something on your mind? Of course.
So how did you become a Grey Warden?
Same way you did. You drink some blood, you choke on it, and pass out. You haven't forgotten already, have you?
Don't be an idiot.
Ah, my secret is out. Now at last I can stop pretending. Pardon the drooling.
Yeah, at least your idiocy is endearing.
Well, thankfully someone thinks so. Let's see, I was in the Chantry before. I trained for many years to become a Templar, in fact. That's where I learned most of my skills.
So you mentioned before.
It's really for the best. I'm not exactly the Chantry type, if you haven't noticed. I don't think I would have made a very good Templar. The Grand Cleric didn't want to let me go. Duncan was forced to conscript me, actually, and was she ever furious when he did. I thought she was going to have us both arrested. I was lucky.
Why did the Grand Cleric want to keep you?
I wondered that myself. It's not as if she valued me highly. I think she just didn't want to give anything to the Grey Wardens, is all. The Chantry didn't lose much. And I think I can do more fighting the Blight anyhow, rather than sitting in a temple somewhere. I'll always be thankful to Duncan for recruiting me. If it hadn't been for him, you know, I wouldn't have.
He was a good man.
He was. A good man who didn't deserve his fate. That much I'm sure of. Come on, let's go. I think I'm done talking. Something on your mind? Of course.
What was it like to be a Grey Warden with all the others?
I didn't know them for very long. But I guess it was longer than you. You never met them all, did you? They were quite a group. Actually, they felt like an extended family, since we were all cut off from our former lives. We also laughed more than you'd think. There was this one time... Well, you probably don't want to hear stories about men you didn't know.
No, I do want to hear about them.
There was one Grey Warden who came all the way from the Anderfells. What was his name? Gregor. He was a burly man with the biggest, fuzziest beard you've ever seen. And the man could drink. He drank all the time, but he never got drunk. Finally, we all made a pool to see just how many pints it would take to put him under the table.
Sounds like you guys had a lot of fun.
Sometimes. We were kin of a sort. All of us had gone through the joining, so we knew... Well, anyhow, it doesn't have to be deadly serious all the time. Anyhow, we never did find out. He said he'd drink a pint for every half pint that the rest of us drank. He was still going by the time the rest of us were passed out. I'm told that Duncan walked in later on and saw us all passed out from one end of the hall to the other, and Gregor still drinking. Duncan laughed until he nearly...
I'm sorry, this must be hard for you.
Yes, I suppose so. I thought I was done with this, but it just struck me that I have nothing to remember Duncan by. Nothing at all. There's no body, not even a token of his that I could take with me. That must sound really stupid to you.
Not at all.
I just would have liked something of his to take with me, that's all. Well, there's no use in moaning about it, is there? He's gone. Let's just go. I'm wondering something. I'd like to know your thoughts about some of our traveling companions. Do you mind if I ask?
Go ahead. I don't mind.
How about Ogren? You must have an opinion on the smell, at the very least.
I thought you two would get along.
As long as he stays downwind, sure. Once he's had a bit to drink, however, forget that. There is no bit to drink with him.
Where does he get all the liquor?
Where? You didn't think that big pack he brings with him is full of equipment, did you? The man is a walking brewery. Not that it's all bad. Dwarven ale has its charms, I suppose. I just don't think you need to drink to the point of blindness every time.
I actually rather like him.
I would too if he could stick to the ribald stories and not so much with the belching and projectile vomiting. How he lifts his sword is a bit of a mystery, though I suppose the point is that he does lift it, and so long as we can point him in the right direction, he charges too. He has gusto, I'll give him that. Zevran, the elf. You can't trust him, can you? Do you believe his so-called vow?
Yes, I actually do.
Really? Why? That's a lot of trust to put in someone who tried to kill you.
I'm willing to give him a chance.
Well, if you are, then maybe I should too. But that doesn't mean I won't keep an eye on him. He's just too shifty. What about Sten? The way he looks at me with those eyes. Creepy. And he's so quiet for someone so big.
He's dedicated, I'll give him that.
Yet he doesn't seem quite so bad as the Chantry tells us. According to them, his philosophy is vile and evil. Yet he seems so reasonable. And yet, he killed all those people. He doesn't even deny it. Doesn't that bother you?
Well, he seems to regret what he did.
I'm not so sure that his regret means the same as it would for us. The Kunari sense of honor is a bit hard to grasp. For me, anyway. What about Liliana? Is she crazy? Or do you really believe in her vision?
I believe that she believes in her vision.
That's one way to put it. I don't know what to make of her. If you look at her when she doesn't see you, she just looks so sad. I almost feel guilty taking her away from her life.
It was her choice.
Yes, I know. Still, I feel badly for her. Morrigan, do you trust her? Think about it. Maybe Flemeth sent her with us for some other reason than she said.
You really don't like each other, do you?
Well, aside from the fact that she's a complete and utter bitch, no, I don't like her at all. Why, do you?
She and I have a connection.
Great. So they were right. Well, it's your funeral. Enough. I think my curiosity is sated. Let's get back to it, shall we? Something on your mind? Of course.
So if you were raised in the Chantry, have you never,
Never what? Had a good pair of shoes?
You know what I mean.
I'm not sure I do. Have I never seen a basilisk? Ate jellied ham? Have I never licked a lamppost in winter?
Can you guys see why I love Steve Valentine? The dude is such a wonderful voice actor. Gosh, I love this man's voice acting. Now you're just making fun of me.
Make fun of my comrade in arms? Perish the thought. Well, you tell me. Have you ever licked a lamppost in winter?
I love how we can range in this answer here. We can go to no, never, to yes, I have, or oh yeah, a lot. Yes.
Just the once? And you didn't lose half of your tongue in the process? I'm impressed. I, myself, never had the pleasure. Not that I haven't thought about it, of course. But, you know.
You lack the proper parts.
Oh, that's funny. Your cruel japes will be remembered, sir. If you hear sobbing later, that's me crying myself to sleep.
Well, at least you'll get some decent rest.
Ha ha ha. Your cruel interrogation will be remembered forever. Or maybe just until lunch. Lunch makes everything better. Oh, look, I have cheese.
Oh, look, I have cheese. I'm sorry, I just love it when he gets all sassy and sarcastic. To me, that's where Steve Valentine's voice acting as Alistair really shines. It just puts a big smile on my face. I know some people don't like it, and it's one of the reasons why some people don't like Alistair, but I'm sorry. I love Alistair, and I love Steve Valentine and his voice acting. He's so great.
Something on your mind? Of course. Such as they are. Just left? You mean just left for Eldon? I don't know. If there's an archdemon, however, we're supposed to be the only ones who can defeat it. And that means the blight would grow unchecked. Eventually, other Grey Wardens in Orlais and other lands would hear about it, and they would come to fight it, but they wouldn't come in time to save Ferelden. There's no way. I'm not going anywhere. About the Grey Wardens, anyhow. Fair enough. Something on your mind? Of course.
Okay, I think that's everyone except Morrigan.
Your desire? So, full of questions, are you?
How did you become a shape changer?
I was not born such. 'Tis a skill of Flemeth's, taught over many years in the wilds. The chastened have tales of we witches, saying that we assume the forms of creatures to watch them from hiding. When a child is alone and separate from his tribe, that is when we strike, dragging the young boy kicking and screaming to our lair to be devoured. A most amusing legend.
Your mother's been doing this for a long time, then?
Changing her form, certainly. Devouring lost children, I cannot say. She has not done it in my experience, though in truth my lifespan is but a fraction of her own. Why do you ask? Is there something specific you wish to know?
Do you spend a lot of time as an animal?
There were nights when the wilds called to me, 'tis true. You look upon the world around you and you think you know it well. I have smelled it as a wolf, listened as a cat, prowled shadows that you never dreamed existed. But my life is as a human. I am under no illusions to the contrary.
And what do other animals think of you when you're changed?
They do not shy away from me. To their senses, I believe I seem like any other of their species. As to what they think, I truly cannot say. Just as I am still human, no matter my form, they are still animals. Thus they cannot speak, even were I to ask.
I've never heard of magic like that before.
No? 'Tis not unheard of in the remote corners of the world. There are traditions of magic outside of the circle of magi, despite what those mages would have you believe. Some of these traditions are old, indeed, passed down as carefully guarded lore from one generation to the next. The zealots of the chantry would uproot all such practitioners if they could. But as luck have it, some still exist. My mother is such a one.
Isn't that sort of magic open to abuse?
Not all apostates use the forbidden blood arts. Maleficarum do, but to condemn all who do not fall under the circle's thrall for the sake of what might be is a dangerous path to walk. There are those who look on the word apostate as meaning freedom.
Can you change into other human forms as well?
The form of an animal is different from my own. One may study the creature, learn to move as it does, think as it does. In time, this allows one to become as it is. I gain nothing by studying another human. I already am the same as they are. I learn nothing. So the answer is no, my human form is the only one I possess.
Can anyone become a shape changer?
Anyone with sufficient will, but the act of transformation is a magical one. 'Tis a spell and thus requires a mage's talents. If you had a notion to learn such a skill for yourself, sadly, you must remain disappointed.
That's all I want to ask.
Indeed. Have you an opinion on my abilities, then? Am I an unnatural abomination to be put to the torch?
Maybe tied to a flagpole and tickled.
What a bizarre thing to say. But enough of such talk. Let us proceed, lest the dust gather on us. Your desire? We are in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any. Ah, such a romantic, I see.
I love that by the time we get to Inquisition, this relationship really affects Morrigan. Like, she even indicates as such how much it actually affected her and actually changed her, as well as, of course, the child they have together. But I will, of course, talk about that more when we get to Inquisition. So, I'm pretty sure that means we have talked to everybody. And we tried to talk to them as much as we could. Now, I'm pretty sure that now I'll be able to actually trigger a couple of things. One, I think we'll be able to trigger the thing with Wynn. I'm not entirely sure about that. But I know one thing we will trigger, and that is Liliana admitting to us later that she lied about why she came here, which will trigger the Marjolaine stuff. So, we may do that next. I'm not entirely sure what we'll do next. But we'll see. Stay tuned.